and study skills tutor in the ILC. And today I'm coming to you from the ILC at North Campus because I have another event later on today here. So I'm already here. So for those of you who are at North Campus, I'm in your home turf today. So today, as I already mentioned a little bit at the beginning, we're going to be talking about ethical use of AI in the workplace. Hello, Kay. Welcome. Hello. So often we talk about, because we are in an academic environment, AI use in academia, which is very different than AI use in the business world. As I'm sure you have noticed, if you have been in any kind of, corporate environment or any kind of non-academic environment, there are different ideas about the way we communicate. There are different ideas about, you typically won't be writing an essay at most of the jobs that you have, like you might in an English class. So this is going to be a little bit different than the kinds of expectations that your instructors might have, though of course we're going to talk about that too. But definitely think about the differences between that. Don't think everything that I say today 100% also applies in your English class. This is specifically talking about AI in business. And I actually attended a workshop a couple of weeks ago. And the guy leading this workshop, he was specifically talking about business and using AI. And he was using it for everything. He was writing his emails. He was using it to schedule his day. He was using it to generate all kinds of stuff, things that might be ethical in the business world, but not necessarily academically. So just keep that in mind as we go forth. So I had some initial questions just for the audience, because if you've been in my presentation before, you know that I really want to make sure that we're talking about the things that you all are interested in. I want to make sure that everybody is getting their questions answered. So I want to kind of see where everybody is with AI. So as I mentioned, we're generally going to be talking about the large language model AI today, but these questions could apply to any kind of AI you've used. So either out loud or in the chat, just let me know a little bit about, have you used AI? If so, what programs and websites? How have you used it? And what did you think upon using it? Any thoughts? Again, either out loud or in the chat.
This is Deborah. I haven't used it, or if I use it, I don't know. And so many people are starting to, contact me on AI using it, and I'm definitely, it is a challenge, and I just don't want to get caught up in it and start using it to take the easy way out to write papers. It's easy to do because I'm in my classroom. There's a lot of young students that are using it, telling me, "Hey, Deborah, go up here, do this," and their grades are looking excellent. I'm, don't want to get caught up in there and trying to take the easy way out.
Gosh, yeah, that's a very good point. And I mean, and you mentioned social media. Facebook has a thing where it's like, use AI to write a response to someone's post. It's crazy. It's everywhere. Oh, yes. And if you've used Grammarly, that is also a form of AI. Absolutely. KSK said in the chat. Yep.
But Grammarly is a form of it?
In a way, yes. I don't know if there's a more robust version. She says Grammarly AI. I don't know if they have a more robust version, but technically, even spell check in Word is kind of an AI. It is functioning to answer questions and, complete prompts for us, solve problems for us. So in a way it is. Now, it's not as robust as what I'm about to be talking about, but it is kind of, yeah. That's not to say you shouldn't use Grammarly. It's a great tool.
I guess I'll go. I used to work in the automotive industry,
hello.
selling cars, but then also, job orders for getting these cars repaired and such. So I got an automotive shop basically, and me and my team used ChatGPT to set up kind of mock sales presentations.
Oh, cool.
So we used ChatGPT to play as let's just say a customer who has a problem with the price, and then we'll kind of interact with that customer. It was actually just the AI, and it actually kind of helped improve our selling skills.
Yeah, I can believe that. I mean, and ChatGPT was originally invented as a chatbot, not something that would write essays, but you could talk to it and it would respond in a realistic human way. So that is what makes ChatGPT so effective for things like that, that it is good at talking to you. And it's kind of creepy how good it is at talking things it can say.
It is, yeah.
I feel like you're actually talking to a real person. Any other thoughts about the questions on this slide here? So from my own perspective on this slide, so I have used obviously like spell check, Grammarly, stuff like that. But as formally, I have used ChatGPT. I've gotten it to write stories because I creatively write. That's like my area that I enjoy the most. So I got it to write some stories. And the first story it wrote, I thought, oh, how cool. That's really amazing. It wrote a good story. And then I got it to write another story in that same genre. And it was basically the exact same story. So I found that it immediately I hit its limits when it comes to creative writing. But I've found that I can ask it pretty much any question and it's able to give an answer that seems right, not necessarily right, but a question that seems right. So it really is fascinating how effective ChatGPT is at giving you an answer really fast. So that's some of my experience. All right. So as I mentioned, I'm going to be talking about primarily large language model AI today. So ChatGPT and other large language model AIs, the way they work is people have programmed large amounts of information into them. Someone with more of a computer science background could probably tell you in more depth. But basically, it's like a big database and it has a whole bunch of things that have been programmed into it. And I think for the most part, it stores everything that people type into it as well. And it makes one giant, database of things that it can pull from. So it can gather information from that data that it has, which is limited. It varies, every time they update it, they can give it new data. But for example, when it first came out, you could ask it about a movie that came out that year and it doesn't know because it doesn't have any data about that movie. Now, again, that's probably changed by now. So then it predicts the most likely string of words, similar to predictive text on your phone. So, when you're typing a message and it will give you a prediction of what's to come next, or you start typing a word and then it corrects that. It's similar to how ChatGPT works. So it can predict the most likely string of words, and it's incredibly talented at that. It's really good at choosing the most likely string of words. What that means is it's not actually thinking anything. It's not actually answering you. It hears what you say or, what you type, and then it spits out a string of words that are the most likely sequence to follow that. So it is not thinking. There's a lot of this thought about, computers taking over the world of developing minds of their own. And yes, ChatGPT can make that appearance, but at least for now, it is really just stringing things together in the most likely way. So as I mentioned, some of its strengths, it is typically grammatically correct. And as I said before, what it says really does look correct. So it will be in complete sentences. It will be very eloquent. It will use a lot of adjectives. It'll look very flourishy and beautiful. It's able to access information quickly. It's not always accurate, as I said, but so for example, I was talking with some nursing instructors and we were talking about ChatGPT, and they asked, can it tell you step by step how to treat a broken leg? And so I typed that in and sure enough, it spit it out right away in a beautiful little step-by-step guide. So it's able to give information very quickly. And it can compose a project very quickly. So for example, if you ask it to write a paragraph, it can do that. It can write an email very quickly. It can save a lot of time in that respect. However, some of its limitations are that the writing is often really stilted. So when I say stilted, what I mean is people, even in an academic environment, even in a business environment where we're trying to be formal, our personality comes across in whatever we say. And there's certain slang, certain turns of phrase that humans will use that ChatGPT really doesn't. it can only write in this very rigid form that it was taught to write in. So as I said, it'll use very flowery adjectives and stuff, but it's in a very formal, it's in a format that most people wouldn't necessarily write like. And that's part of the way that people can often detect it, because it has this certain style. And once you see the style, you can recognize it. As I said, it lacks creativity. So I told it to write a story, and then it wrote another story in the same genre, which is pretty much the exact same story. So it can't actually create new things for itself. Like, it can't think and be creative like a person can. It can lack clarity and flow. So, like, for example, if you ask it to write one paragraph about this, now write another paragraph about this, it might do that, but those paragraphs are not going to connect as well as if you were to think it through and write it yourself. A big one in the academic realm is that it really struggles with utilizing sources. So it can pretend to cite things, but those are often like false or completely made up. So it might look like a real source. I don't know if Ashley's still here, but she had actually given me this example that she was talking to a student who had a culinary paper. And because it was in the realm of culinary arts, one of the sources was an author named Flam Bay, which is a form of cooking with, fire. So because it was writing in this area of cooking, ChatGPT put the name flambe because it associates that with cooking. So it'll come up with things that looks, again, might be realistic, but it isn't actually true. So along with what I was saying with Deborah earlier, it's always important to fact check. You always want to make sure you know where this information is coming from and that it's real and not just looks like it could be real. And finally, it's biased and it lacks logic. So when I say biased, remember how I said that it has only the information that's been programmed into it? I've been attending a lot of presentations talking about ChatGPT and other LLMs, and they talk about how even though people try not to make it biased, every person is biased. So whoever is programming it, whoever is putting that information in, whoever programmed it to the way it puts language together, that is going to have bias. So there's really no way to avoid that, just as there's no way to avoid our own bias. But this is a bias that we don't even know about. It's not coming from inside us. It's coming from this programmer who programmed it, or multiple programmers. So for example, these might be things that have been corrected in new versions of ChatGPT, but it used to be that it would always assume that, say, for example, you tell it to write a story about a doctor, the doctor would always be male, that kind of thing. So it has assumptions based on the data that's been programmed into it that may not necessarily be true, but it doesn't know any better. It can't use reason. It can't logic. It can't be strategic in its usage of information because it can only just pull from what it knows. All right. So any questions about how ChatGPT works, strengths, weaknesses, anything that you've noticed that you'd like to share, strength-wise or weakness-wise, anything at all?
Correct me if I'm wrong, but I was under the impression that AI, like I guess ChatGPT, for example, learns based off of all of the users that input data into it.
Yes.
So like if you have like thousands of people telling it that the Constitution was signed in 1777, it would eventually start to believe that. Is that right?
That is probably, yes, that is probably also true, because I've heard that it takes the information that we write into it. That's why you have to be careful what you put into ChatGPT, because that then kind of becomes part of the model. And yeah, I've heard the exact same thing, that it will integrate whatever information it receives. Yeah, absolutely. And I think that it's getting better, quote unquote, with every iteration. Whatever errors they find, they correct. And it's been improving. And, however we want to define improving, getting harder to determine whether it's, detectable or not, or better at, these users have inputted something that is false. I will disregard that. It's probably getting better at all those things. Any other thoughts, questions before we move on? All right. So that was kind of just the general overview. Now we're moving into the specific business aspect. So, like I said, different from academia. That's a whole other conversation. But here I went to an article on Forbes to find what businesses were saying about AI. So it's probably way more embraced than it is in the academic world. They're using it to write website content, using it to craft communications, so like emails. Though people are concerned about over dependence on AI use. But people also believe that using AI will improve customer relationships. So generally, it's a fairly positive, half and half, I guess, which half people, it's a pretty large number, pretty open to the use of AI. And I have heard, like I said, I was at a presentation where the speaker was talking about how businesses really are embracing it, and you're going to be expected, depending upon your area, you're going to be expected to work with ChatGPT. I think Benjamin just gave a great example there. In an area that you may not have thought, but auto sales, like you may not think that you'll be necessarily engaging with AI, but you might be, depending on your area. So it's important to understand how to utilize it. Because it is going to be an expectation. It's probably not going to go away. It's probably going to continue to be a part of our lives. So some ethical considerations to keep in mind. So as I said, your company will likely ask you to use and be comfortable with AI in some way. And just like I would always say academically, make sure you follow the guidelines for your class, or in this case, your company, wherever it is you work, the ways that they say is acceptable to use AI. You can say that that is acceptable. You can do that, of course, within your own standards, as I say. There may be different rules in different places, especially as this is such an evolving time. So it's important to always know what the guidelines wherever you work are so you can follow them. Outside of that, though, it's important to present yourself honestly. So when I say that, I mean, so for example, probably the easiest thing to think of when it comes to this is using ChatGPT to write an email. So say, write a thank you letter to the people who got me a wonderful birthday present. And then it writes this email. Well, you want to make sure that what is being said there is an honest representation of who you are. You want to make sure that you're not letting ChatGPT kind of take over your own voice. And that is kind of where I mean here, your own standards. Like, what does that mean to you? What does crossing that line mean? And how do you feel about that? And how does your company feel about that? And there are a lot of unclear areas, a lot of gray areas surrounding this. So for example, if you're a person who sees yourself as, a very weak writer, you're like, oh God, writing emails is the worst thing ever. I hate writing emails. I'm just going to use AI to do it. I can see that. Again, valid. However, you want to think about, what does that mean? What is that choice? And how does that reflect upon who you are? Not to say it's negative necessarily, but you just want to be thinking about that. So with that in mind, I'm going to go into talking about some ethical uses of large language model AIs when it comes to writing for business. So first, using it for grammatical things. As we mentioned before, we already have some grammar AIs, even though they're not quite as robust. But using it to check your grammar, check subject-verb agreement, sentence structure, word choice. You can use it to get examples. So for example, if you're trying to write a business proposal, you might say, hey, could ChatGPT give me an outline of a business proposal so I can see what format to follow? You can use it to help you understand a concept. So say, for example, you're trying to figure out how to, do some wiring in your bathroom. How should I do this? Obviously, this is definitely the kind of thing you want to fact check. You don't want to get electrocuted because you listen to ChatGPT, but to help you get a general understanding of the concept, it's really helpful for that. It can help you with brainstorming, coming up with ideas for a topic or a task. You can use it to help you organize tasks. If you have 12 things you need to do, you could put those all into ChatGPT and say, okay, how should I approach this task list? You can use it with translations. So for example, if English isn't your first language, then you may want some help translating something, or if you're trying to write in a language that isn't your own. So for me, for example, writing in Spanish, I could get it to help polish my Spanish to make sure that it was readable by other Spanish speakers. You can use it to suggest search terms. So say you're doing research on a topic at your job and you're like, gosh, I don't know how to research, blood diseases. I might type in, or I might ask, what are some search terms for blood diseases? And then I would know what to put in to a database to find information about that. Some other revision guidance that you can use it for is to ask, is what I've written biased? So I know I mentioned ChatGPT itself is biased, but you could still ask, especially if you don't have anyone available. Once you graduate from Wake Tech, you don't have our marvelous ILC tutors available as readily. So that's definitely something you could use to ask, what is the tone of my paper? Is this biased? Again, obviously you have to take that as, not necessarily 100% accurate, but it's good to have someone to bounce your ideas off of. You can use it to explain complex topics. So for example, if you know there's a process for starting a compost pile, for example, it can explain that process to you. And as I mentioned, maybe writing some emails potentially, or other busy work like that. So any thoughts about these ethical uses? Any other ones that that you have done or that you can think of? Obviously, Benjamin brought up a great one, having ChatGPT stand in as a client. That's a great one.
Miss Maegan, this might be a little off. I know I'm in that program where human services technology, where we have to had to write a lot of reports. When it comes to confidentiality and why people getting out of treatment centers, and if they are, so you can't really talk about stuff to different clients or relationships because of confidentiality. Would that AI pose a type of situation?
Oh, like say someone is entering client information into ChatGPT to get it to write a report for them?
Yes.
Absolutely. Yep. And I personally do not know a lot of the details surrounding that. I just know that what Benjamin said is more or less true, that everything you enter in there then becomes a part of its database. So absolutely, if you are entering private information into an AI, that can potentially be, a breach of privacy policies, definitely. Now, when it comes to other things, and again, this is not my area of expertise, I'm not 100% sure how this would work as far as computer programming wise, but say, for example, you've got Microsoft Copilot or something that is like embedded on your computer and you're just typing in Word and it's like correcting things, that may be safer. You would have to do some research to know, but yeah, I know, that's definitely an area to think about.
Yeah, the way I look at it is anything you put into the program, whether it's ChatGPT, Copilot, you should really have no expectation of privacy.
Wow.
So expect that data to be sold or used to advertise for you, whatnot.
Yeah. It's scary. I feel like less and less of our information is our own as we go forward.
Yeah, because you hear about different information getting out and like when you want to pay, it's like, if I want to pay a bill, I'm used to paying things kind of old fashioned way and everybody going online to pay stuff. And sometimes when these businesses call you and they use that logo or like, hey, put me in that category, like with my credit. I'm not sure how they determine, how they send you credit cards, say, hey, you pre-qualify, you pre-screen. I'm like, well, how do you, so this stuff is fascinating to me. And I don't want to be that type, student that's, left behind and targeted, especially targeted seniors that may not have a lot of information. And so that's what I was just concerned,
Yeah.
because we had to do a lot of writing, dealing with people emotions and,
Yeah.
what would a therapist say about me? And, I might even want to put in some information like, hey, what's the 5 numbers that I can win the $100 million Mega Million? That's what I was thinking about,
That's a great question. Of course, everyone's probably putting that in. I will say regarding information in there, I mean, honestly, it's probably going to be anonymized. Like, it's not going to be like, if you type in something, again, I would say never trust it with anyone else's information. But if you put in some information about, I'm struggling with XYZ, what are some suggestions? It's not going to literally come right back to you, in my perspective and my thought that way anyway. But you just have to be careful. Just like anything you put on Facebook, it's now online. So you just have to be aware of it. That's all. But yeah, like patient information. Yeah, that's definitely dicey. Yeah. Ashley said in the chat here, comparing different models of airplanes. Yeah, absolutely. Looking at what consumers are hearing about the differences in airplanes and improve their experience in doing their research. Yeah, absolutely. Definitely. I think there's going to be a whole, sorry, go on.
Do you actually see this form of communication? Are you now seeing it in the grade schools, like 3rd grade on up, or do you see mainly AI on the college level, or the teachers actually exposing our young students, as early as middle school to this AI?
So I would say the students are exposing themselves to it. I'm sure word has spread like crazy that, so yeah, even starting as early as 3rd grade, I imagine other 3rd graders are like, hey, did you hear about X website? You can give it your prompt and it'll write your essay for you. I'm sure it's happening. Absolutely. Yep. And I have some data that I'm presenting actually in another AI workshop. But yeah, 60% of high schoolers are using AI to write things.
Okay, yep. Just in case, I have a 11th grader, and I'm not sure he's using it or not. Or you're saying, hey, Grandma, I've done my homework and I'm unable to figure out it, why is he taking so, short time to do it? I mean, he's not spending a lot of time, doing things. I'm like, if you're actually on this program and know that I haven't figured it out yet. So
what I would recommend when it comes to that is then engage him in a conversation about what he's working on. And then that way you'll know immediately. If someone's just typed it into AI and gotten an answer, then you'll know. If they don't know anything about what they've written or done, then you'll know that something is up.
Yeah, it tells you how out of touch I am. Even at 19, my 12-year-old sister is who told me about ChatGPT. So I think it's pretty much everybody of all ages using it now, not just high schoolers and college students.
Wow.
Yeah. I can even speak to my 4-year-old who she just loves to ask lots of questions. And so her grandmother got a Amazon Echo or whatever it is. So it isn't exactly what we're talking about, but it is very close. And she loves to go and ask it questions. Yeah. And so our positioning of the tech has really been around getting her to critically think about what she's hearing. Okay, how do you know? Oh, well, Echo told me. Okay, well, let's go look it up in some other sources and compare the answers from different sources to dive deeper so that she isn't taking in this information as fact, but learning really how to engage with it as a source and a starting point to go think on.
Absolutely.
So, yeah, even at 4.
Yep. Oh, at 4. Oh, so they size me up like, damn, Grandma don't know. Let's throw a question at her. Grandma don't know, so I know I've been had. But I mean, very interesting. I would take this information to my folks in the senior citizens atmosphere because we're a little bit lost. Not lost, but we're targeted. So
I mean, it all moves so fast. And what Ashley just said is absolutely right. And it's the same thing that's been true for a long time. You can't always trust the headlines. You've got to dig deeper. You've got to always critically think about information when it comes in, you just have to. And that is the most important lesson to learn. You have to critically think about the answers that you receive or the videos that you see or the pictures that are posted. You've got to critically think about it. Absolutely.
Oh,
Yeah. I don't envy you a conversation with your high schooler about using ChatGPT for homework. Uh-oh.
oh, he's gotten on me. I know he got me. Like, she don't know. She's not gonna find out. She's not gonna do the study.
Oh,
She's not gonna. She's not gonna. Hey, set up an appointment with ILC to learn about stuff. But I got something for him now. I sure do.
Oh my goodness. So as coming back to kind of what I mentioned before, just a last warning here. So yes, you can use, again, in the business world, the ideas about, it varies. It's different than for academic writing. And I don't want to say it's totally different. And there are no ideas about integrity as far as using ChatGPT to write an email, but it's different. So you just need to be aware of that. So, it might be acceptable in the business world to have ChatGPT write emails for you or draft proposals for you at your job. But you want to be aware of that. Make sure you're the one who's in control. Make sure you know what that large language model AI is saying and make sure you agree with that. And that's what you intend. When I tell students, even when they use like autocorrect, I said, don't turn off your brain. Check it. Make sure that what it's saying is what you want it to say. It's easy to rely upon information like this because it's so similar to the other things that we're used to. So for example, our phones remember all of our phone numbers for us, so we don't have to worry about it anymore. So it's easy to say, oh, well, I'll just type it into ChatGPT and get an answer, and I don't have to worry about remembering it, which for some things might be true. But you've got to be careful about those other more critical thinking level decisions that you really still do need to make for yourself. So just be aware, just be careful. Make sure that you have your own internal ethics that you're using to guide your use of large language model AIs. And never let it stand in for your own knowledge. Use AI to learn more that will then be in your head. Don't use it as a crutch. Don't use it as a way to just get out of having to learn about it. Make sure that you are taking ownership of what you find when you do research using ChatGPT or when it writes something for you. So for example, I mentioned using it to get like translations or word choice suggestions. Make sure you integrate that. Don't just turn off your brain and copy and paste its suggestion into your paper or into your report or whatever it might be. It's important to make sure that you are learning from that, because if not, then it's becoming, it's a slippery slope to letting it think for you. And you don't want that to be the case. You want to have ownership of your own thoughts. And my last slide is just to talk about how to cite AI, how to cite ChatGPT, because this is now, the world we live in, where you may be using it in essays or in business reports. So it's important to know how to cite that. So before I move on to citation, any other thoughts, questions?
I guess I'll just add,
Yeah.
I have to say, I've used the Chat GPT for like getting word synonyms and stuff when writing papers. And like you said, I actually learned a lot just for alternate word choices. So for that, it's definitely a good tool.
It is. It's a great tool. And I don't want to think that, I think a lot of people, there's not a lot of people signed up for this workshop, and I've done some other AI workshops. And I think a lot of people are kind of afraid that I'm going to be like saying, don't use it. It's vile, it's villainous, or people are just kind of afraid to talk about AI. But really, it's a great tool. It's a really amazing tool. And I think that it's something that can really help people who, especially these large language models who, need or want a lot of one-on-one contact when it comes to writing something, to be able to literally have it look at every single sentence and give feedback and help you improve. It can be really valuable for that. So yeah, as long as you don't turn off your mind and forget to critically think, it's a great tool. Absolutely. So here is both an MLA Works Cited page citation and an APA references page citation. Notice that if you are familiar with MLA and APA, they're always a little bit different. So I thought it was really interesting to see the way that it was integrated. Now, this is an academic example, but it's using ChatGPT as a source, not to like copy and paste to use as a sentence in their paper, but listen to this. When asked to describe the symbolism of the green light in The Great Gatsby, ChatGPT provided a summary about optimism, the unattainability of the American dream, greed, and covetousness. However, when further prompted to cite the source on which that summary was based, it noted that it lacked the ability to conduct research or cite sources independently, but that it could provide a list of scholarly sources related to the symbolism of the green light in The Great Gatsby. So, like, using what was given from ChatGPT to kind of further talk about ChatGPT in dialogue with what they're saying about, in this case, The Great Gatsby. It's not just copying and pasting the words, like say, write a sentence about blah, 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 and then you copy and paste that. So similarly, so what Benjamin was talking about, when you talked to customers, you might want to cite what one of those ChatGPT customers said. You could say, okay, when asked, blah, 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 ChatGPT responded as a customer, this. So it's important to know how to cite that information that we're getting. Yeah. And the way that we're going to start talking about ChatGPT in the same way that we might talk about Google, like, oh, I Googled that. Where did you learn that? I Googled it. It's more or less the same. It's filling, in some ways, the same niche, only it's even more effective. And I've heard some people say that they don't use Google anymore. They just use ChatGPT. Though I like Google because I can find out what source it came from. Any questions or thoughts about the citations? All right. So I'm now going to do a demonstration. So I'm going to stop sharing this PowerPoint, and I'm going to share my screen and go into ChatGPT and just show you guys, for those who may not be as familiar with it, how it works and what you can do with it. Oh, and there's some new folks that have arrived since I started. So hello, everybody. Welcome. All right. Okay. So here we are in just the free version of ChatGPT. And as you see right away, it gives you some options right away. So it says plan a trip, create a character, or create a charter to start a film club. So what should I ask it? Any questions? Anything you want to know? Anything you want it to compose for us? Anything you would like it to write? Anything at all?
Dealing with credit scores, how do they target, individuals on, credit scores and credit cards? That's what I get on the
with credit card offers. All right. So pre-approved, let's see. Okay, here we go. Credit bureau lists. Credit card companies purchase lists of consumers' credit reports from credit bureaus like Experian, Equifax, and TransUnion. They use the information in these reports to identify individuals who meet certain criteria, such as having a good credit score or a history of responsible credit card use.
Okay.
So there it is. They pull it directly from the companies, which to me should be illegal. They should sell it. But these credit bureaus are private businesses, so they can do whatever they want, I suppose. Yeah.
Okay.
And then they kind of are talking about like how they reach out to you. So yeah, direct mail, telemarketing. Yeah. Great. Yeah. So as you see, it could give quite a detailed explanation.
Okay.
All right. I'm going to ask it to write a poem about cats. Here it goes. Writing its poem. Any other things we should ask? See if people have been typing in the chat here. I can't view the chat while I've got my screen shared. Let me see. anything at all? Anyone you guys would like to test?
Someone just mentioned in the chat tell a little bit about Mozart.
Tell us about Mozart. Thank you.
Yeah.
All right. Oh, it's thinking. Okay, there we go. And so notice at this point, it's kind of just telling us like everything. It's a really long, just general overview. So here, remember how I mentioned it's a chat bot. It's really good about like narrowing stuff. I could say, give me a list of all Mozart's operas. And so now it can just narrow down. So it starts generally, but we can ask it to narrow it at any point. Oh, great. We got some more ideas in the chat. All right. How to start a business without needing money. How to start a business without any money. Let's see what it says. It's challenging, but not impossible, it says. Okay. All right. So first it talks about identifying skills and then research. Okay. It says, leverage existing resources and minimize expenses. Start small from your home using free or low-cost tools. Yeah. Utilize free marketing and promotion, bartering and collaboration. Focus on cash flow and revenue generation. So notice, I think I mentioned this before, sometimes it tends to be very general. So notice that it doesn't have any specific things here. It doesn't say any organizations to reach out to. So like, for example, I might have said, if you had asked me, I would say, hey, maybe you should, using AI, excuse me. I'm so sorry. Let me add that in. But anyway, let me just say this really quick. So I might say you could talk to the Small Business Bureau in Raleigh. That would be something that I think would be very specific. However, this is just very general, which is good. It's helpful, but it's very general. So it's important to keep that in mind. Okay, so how to start a business without any money using AI. Okay, there we go. Okay. So identify a niche, it says. Then you want to develop an AI-powered solution. Okay, so open source AI frameworks, cloud-based AI services. Okay. So yeah, it's okay, freelance AI talent. So basically it's like using AI as a tool to develop your business, it looks like is what it's saying here. And here we could ask it some questions to be more specific. So Rodrigo, did you have a specific question we could ask to narrow it a little bit more? Was there something you were specifically thinking of? So maybe, for example, okay, could you, okay, e-commerce, okay. Could you specifically talk about an e-commerce business? Certainly. Okay. Okay, so again, notice that it's still kind of specific. It's saying, or kind of general. It's saying kind of the same things. Oh, the light went off on me. Oh, well. It's saying some of the same kind of things. So identify a niche, AI-powered product recommendations. But again, certainly worth looking into. Absolutely. AI-powered fraud detection. Yeah.
Another thing about it too, and forgive me if you already mentioned it, I can't remember. I believe the information, at least on ChatGPT, is dated by a year or two. If that's not the case now, then I know it used to be.
Okay, and so see, Rodrigo, I think, has some experience with AI because he's already giving me some ideas to narrow it. He said, ask what tools and steps. But yeah, Benjamin, you're absolutely right. It is dated by like a year. So for example, if you asked about a movie that came out this year, it's not going to know about it. Absolutely. Yep. So notice here, it broke down each part to tools and steps. So AI-driven customer support, tools, AI-powered chatbot platform like blah, 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 blah. Steps, set up AI-powered chatbots on your website or messaging platforms to handle common customer inquiries. So yeah, absolutely. You can prompt it to be more specific. Absolutely. Definitely. So before I close ChatGPT, any other, oh no, we did have one. Ashley said, create a PowerPoint about potential uses of AI in business. PowerPoint. I know probably can't do visuals. I'm going to be interested to see how it does this. For how to use AI in business. Here it goes. Title slides, category. Yep. There it goes. Went so fast. Yeah. So yeah, there's our outline.
What I think is really awesome about using this tool this way is oftentimes we can go off on tangents, or we're not as organized with our thoughts as we might want to be. Yeah. And we can critically think about what it's just given us, right? Mm-hmm. I like this flow, or I'd change this slide, or I'd add this, but it's incredibly broad and general, right? This is not going to be a PowerPoint you can just go turn in, right? This is a starting point that we then need to go critically think about. So whether this is a presentation to stakeholders or potential investors or what have you, it's a good starting place. But I think a lot of people often want it to just spit out something like you sort of started with, like, it's not going to do visuals. But it's a good starting point. It's never the answer in a complete form.
Yes, absolutely. And I think it's important to remember that it is a tool. It is a way to generate ideas. It is not the end results, but it is pretty astounding what it can manage. Yeah. And again, if you keep prompting it, it can give you more details. You just have to learn, like, if you want to work with it more, you got to learn kind of what kind of prompts to use. My husband does a lot of art generated AI just for fun, goofy stuff on his own. And he has figured out how to get the nuances right to get it to produce the kind of picture he's looking for. Thank you, James. Sending out the session links for the 3 p.m. session. The last slide, I won't bother bringing it up again. The last slide, I'll be sending it out to folks so you'll be able to see it. The last slide just has my email address on it and asks for any final thoughts or questions. So any final thoughts or questions from anybody today? Thank you all so much for coming.
I'm glad I was checking my emails. I wasn't, I was paying attention since, we've been out on break, and this definitely can help me, actually, deal with my family and my young grandkids to be more knowledgeable, and so I can, stay a little more alert. And because I tell you, I'm gonna start using it as soon as we get off here. I am. I might have to work on the paper, but I don't want to. A lot of my instructors say, hey, don't get caught up in the social media and TikTok and all these platforms. And this will definitely help me as far as, not to be scammed or stuff like that.
To know it and know how to recognize it and know, how to use it effectively without getting, like thinking it's the end result of things. Absolutely. Well, thank you all so much. I'm going to go ahead and stop the recording now. And you will be getting a link will be posted